They didn't clap. Not a single hand moved when she wrapped her arms around her son. In a hall filled with polished shoes and pressed gowns, the silence thundered louder than applause ever could. For a fleeting second, her body trembled as if she had stepped into a storm no one else could feel. Monica Harris had been in storms before. She had walked through nights so heavy with grief that her bones ached. She had stitched wounds under flickering hospital lights, held the hands of strangers who exhaled their last breaths, and carried the weight of a world that too often dismissed her existence. But nothing, not even the cruelest night shift in the emergency room, prepared her for the moment the auditorium turned its back on her son on both of them. It had all seemed so perfect that morning. She had ironed her dress with the care of a ritual, chosen earrings that glimmered just enough to whisper rather than shout. Today was his day. Jamal, her boy who had once hidden beneath her nursing scrubs as a child whenever the world felt too sharp, was walking across that stage. He had defied statistics, expectations, and whispered doubts that tried to shrink him. And he hadn't walked alone. When Jamal laced his fingers with Aiden's, Monica saw a truth that made her chest swell. Her son wasn't just graduating. He was daring to love openly. But the room did not swell with her. It recoiled. The first turned face was a woman Monica knew only from PTA meetings, her lips pinched, her eyes refusing to see. Then it spread, a ripple of shoulders twisting, gazes falling away, clapping hands frozen midair. What should have been applause became a performance of disapproval. And in that suffocating theater, Monica understood. This was not just about her son's love. This was about her. About them. About a black mother who had dared to give her child a love so whole that he could walk into the world unashamed. Jamal felt it too. Monica could feel his grip tighten, as if anchoring himself to her presence. Aiden's jaw clenched, his pale knuckles showing where fear tried to break through. For a moment, Monica thought of pulling away, of shielding her son from the daggers of silence, but her arms only tightened. If the world chose to turn its back, then let it. She would not. Her life had been lived in service of other sutures, midnight shifts, saving lives that sometimes never learned her name. She had given without expecting, endured without recognition. But here, in this hall meant for celebration, Monica realized something fierce. All her years of tending to the wounds of strangers had prepared her for this one battle for the wound society carved into her son's dignity. She remembered the lessons from her grandmother, a woman who scrubbed floors so Monica could dream of something beyond survival. Dignity, her grandmother once whispered, is not given. It is claimed, even when the world says you don't deserve it. Monica straightened her back. Her voice, though soft, carried. I am proud of you, Jamal. I am proud of both of you. The words were not for the hall. They were for her son, for the boy who once asked her if love could ever belong to someone like him. They were for herself, too, because courage often begins with hearing your own voice defy the silence. And still the silence pressed. The ceremony went on, hollow applause returning for names unconnected to hers. She could feel eyes cutting, whispers slithering. The image of her son beaming in his cap and gown, his boyfriend by his side, would not be the memory shared in hushed admiration later. No, it would be dissected, weaponized, reshaped into another story about what happens when people like them forget their place. But Monica did not forget her place. She redefined it. That night, when Jamal sat slumped on the edge of his bed, diploma half forgotten on the dresser, Monica sat beside him. They didn't clap, Mom, he said. His voice cracked like a boy's again, not the man who had walked across the stage hours before. They didn't need to, she replied, tucking a curl behind his ear as she had done when he was small. You don't live for their applause. Aiden hovered by the door, torn between giving space and needing to belong. Monica reached out her hand to him. Sit, Aiden. You're part of this too. He sat, and for a moment the three of them were bound not by silence, but by something heavier, deeper, the knowledge that tomorrow would not be easier. Tomorrow, the whispers might grow, the stares might harden, the system itself might push back. But Monica also knew something else. Love, once spoken, once lived without apology, could not be returned to its hiding place. The world had turned its back on them, but Monica felt something ignite inside her, an ember that had smoldered for years while she worked herself to exhaustion, enduring small indignities for the sake of peace. Now, She understood that peace bought by silence was no peace at all. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of her true work. Monica had never thought of herself as a fighter. Fighters were loud, fierce, sharp with their words. She was steady, careful, the kind of woman who patched up others and swallowed her own wounds. But now, after the graduation, she realized there were battles she could no longer avoid. The next morning, her phone began to buzz. First, it was coworkers sending cautious messages. Saw you on the stage yesterday. Brave. Hope you're okay. Then came the whispers disguised as sympathy. People can be so judgmental. But maybe it wasn't the right time for a public display. She deleted most of them without answering. But the hospital was different. As she walked into her shift, she felt it. Eyes that once greeted her with tired smiles slid away. Nurses who had shared midnight coffee breaks spoke in hushed tones. Even the head doctor, a man she had worked alongside for 15 years, offered only a stiff nod. She thought she was imagining it until she reached the break room. On the table lay a folded newspaper. The headline was bold, too bold. Graduation scene sparks debate. Nurse's public embrace stirs controversy. Beneath it, a grainy photo of her hugging Jamal and Aiden filled half the page. Someone had circled her face in pen, with a note scrawled beneath, unprofessional. Her stomach tightened. This wasn't just about a mother and her son anymore. It was about her livelihood, her reputation, her years of sacrifice boiled down to one photograph. She set the paper down with shaking hands, only to realize she wasn't shaking with fear. She was shaking with anger. That evening, she sat at the kitchen table across from Jamal and Aiden. Jamal's diploma still rested untouched on the counter. It's spreading, she said softly. They're not just talking. They're watching. Aiden's face paled. Do you think it could cost you your job? Monica didn't answer right away. She had spent her entire career proving herself twice over, once for being black, once for being a woman. Now she realized she would have to prove herself a third time, for daring to be a mother who embraced her son's truth. Maybe it could, she admitted. But we're not going to let them decide who we are. Jamal leaned forward, his eyes fierce with the same stubborn fire she had seen when he was a child. Then we fight back. We tell our story before they twist it further. Monica looked at him, at the man he had become, and something in her chest shifted. She had always been his protector. Maybe now, he would be hers too. The days that followed were a blur. A local journalist reached out, offering Monica the chance to share her perspective. At first, she hesitated. Exposure meant risk. But then she thought of the turned backs in the auditorium, of her son's trembling hands, of every family forced into silence. She agreed. When the article went live, it was raw and unflinching. Monica spoke about her years of service as a nurse, her pride in her son, and the moment the room chose shame over celebration. She didn't ask for pity. She asked for recognition. That love should not require permission, that dignity should not depend on applause. The response was explosive. Some called her courageous. Others accused her of seeking attention. The hospital administration summoned her for a meeting. Sitting in the sterile office, Monica faced three men in suits who spoke of professional image and community expectations. She listened quietly until they implied that perhaps her presence at public events should be more discreet. That was when she found her voice. I've held the hands of dying patients who didn't care what I believed in, only that I stayed. I've saved lives in this hospital while some of you were home asleep. And you think I should be ashamed because I hugged my son? If my love for him is unprofessional, then maybe you need to rethink what profession you're in. The room went silent. They didn't fire her or not yet, but she left knowing the battle lines had been drawn. At home, Jamal scrolled through online comments, some supportive, some vicious. It's not just about me anymore, he said one night, staring at the glow of his phone. It's about every kid like me who's watching. Aiden squeezed his hand. And every parent like your mom who needs to see they're not alone. Monica felt the weight of their words. She was no longer just a nurse or a mother. She was becoming something else, an unwilling symbol, perhaps, but a necessary one. The system had chosen her, through its cruelty, to stand in defiance. And though she was tired, she would not step back. The hardest part came from family. Her sister, Patricia, called late one evening. Monica, you've always been the strong one, Patricia said carefully. But do you think this is wise? People talk. Opportunity's close. You don't want to drag Jamal into more pain. Monica clenched the phone tighter. Patricia, the pain isn't from us. It's from them. And if I stay silent, then I'm telling my son his love is something to hide. There was a pause. Then a sigh. I just don't want to lose you too. Monica closed her eyes. You won't. But I won't lose him either. Days stretched into weeks. The hospital remained tense. Monica's shifts were harder, her colleagues' silence heavier. But outside, something unexpected bloomed. Letters arrived, handwritten notes from parents she had never met, from strangers who saw in her a reflection of their own battles. One card read simply, "Because of you, I told my daughter I love her girlfriend." Those words became her fuel. Yet the opposition was relentless. A local church group organized a protest, demanding the hospital dismiss her. Flyers appeared with her name, her face, twisted accusations about morality. For the first time, Monica felt fear claw at her chest. What if this destroyed not just her career, but Jamal's future too? One night, unable to sleep, she found herself standing at Jamal's doorway. He was awake, sitting with Aiden, laughter muffled under the hum of music. For a moment, Monica watched quietly. Her son was happy, in love, alive. And she knew then that no protest, no headline, no system could erase that truth. The next morning, she made a decision. She would not retreat. If the system demanded she shrink, she would expand. If they silenced her at work, she would speak louder outside. She reached out to community leaders, LGBTQ+ groups, civil rights organizations. Slowly, she began weaving connections, finding others who had been bruised by the same system. And for the first time in her life, Monica Harris didn't feel like she was fighting alone. Monica's decision to stand tall carried consequences that reached further than she could have imagined. By the third week after graduation, the whispers had transformed into open hostility in some corners of her life. Yet, alongside the hostility came something new, an undeniable wave of recognition that she was part of a bigger story than just her own family. She first felt it when she was asked to speak at a community meeting organized by a local advocacy group. The hall was modest, with folding chairs lined in uneven rows and a microphone that crackled with every adjustment. Still, when Monica stepped up to the front, the room filled with an energy that was impossible to ignore. Parents, teenagers, even elders filled the space. Some clutched rainbow flags. Others carried homemade posters that simply read, "We stand with Monica." Her hands trembled as she gripped the microphone. She had always been more comfortable listening than speaking, more at home in the hum of hospital corridors than before a crowd. But then she spotted Jamal and Aiden sitting together in the front row, their faces glowing with quiet pride. That sight steadied her. "My whole life," she began, her voice soft but unwavering. "I've given everything I had to care for people. As a nurse, I never asked who you loved or what you believed in. I only asked where it hurt. And now, I realize this community hurts. Not because of who we are, but because of who refuses to see us." The words poured from her like a dam breaking. She spoke about the silence in the auditorium, about the newspaper headline that tried to reduce her love to scandal, about the way her colleagues' eyes refused to meet hers. But she also spoke of the letters she had received, of the courage she had witnessed in her son, of the hope that flickered even in the darkest moments. When she finished, the applause rose like thunder so loud it shook her bones. Monica blinked back tears. For once, the sound did not feel hollow. For once, the world was clapping with her, not against her. But the fight was not over. The very next day, a formal letter arrived at her home from the hospital board. It was written in clinical, detached language. Concerns over professional conduct, references to maintaining public trust, a scheduled hearing to determine her future with the institution. Monica sat at the kitchen table, the letter trembling in her hands. "They're trying to push me out," she whispered. Jamal snatched the letter, reading it with growing outrage. "This is retaliation. They can't do this just because you stood by me." Aiden spoke up, his voice calmer but just as firm. "They think they can shame you into silence. That's why they're doing it on paper. It's intimidation." Monica exhaled slowly. She had known this was coming, but seeing it in writing made it real. Still, beneath the fear was something fiercer. "Then we won't let them. If they want a hearing, I'll give them a hearing they'll never forget." In the days leading up to the hearing, Monica prepared. She gathered evidence of her spotless record, letters from grateful patients, testimonials from colleagues who still had the courage to stand by her. Jamal and Aiden helped organize community members who promised to show up and support. The story spread further social media posts, local news segments, opinion columns. Suddenly, Monica Harris wasn't just a nurse in one hospital. She was a name people across the city recognized. The morning of the hearing, the hospital boardroom was filled beyond capacity. Dozens of supporters lined the hallways, holding signs that read "Love is not unprofessional and we stand with Monica." Reporters clustered outside, cameras flashing. Inside, the board members sat stiffly, their suits pressed, their expressions carved in stone. Monica stood before them, her heart pounding but her back straight. She looked each man and woman in the eye before she began. "For 25 years, I have served this hospital," she said, her voice steady. "I have worked shifts so long that I forgot what sunlight looked like. I have held children as they took their last breaths, and I have sat with elders whose families never came. Not once did I ask about the color of their skin or the gender of the person they loved. I gave everything I had, and now you tell me my love for my own son makes me unfit? No, I won't accept that." Her words hung in the air. For a moment, the room was silent. Then one of the board members, a gray-haired man with cold eyes, leaned forward. "Miss Harris, this is not about love. This is about professionalism." "The public," Monica cut him off. "The public? You mean the people who already decided my family doesn't deserve dignity? If professionalism means betraying my son, then I want no part of it. Because I will not let your definition of public trust erase who we are." Gasps rippled through the room. Some board members shifted uncomfortably. Others stared with tight jaws. Monica knew she was taking a risk, but she also knew she could not bend. When the hearing ended, no immediate decision was announced. But outside, as Monica stepped into the sunlight, the crowd erupted into cheers. Jamal and Aiden rushed forward, and Monica pulled them both into her arms. For the first time since the graduation, she felt something close to peace. That night, sitting in her living room, Monica reflected on everything that had happened. She knew the hospital could still fire her. She knew the hate wouldn't vanish overnight. But she also knew this. She was no longer invisible. Her voice had been heard, and it could not be unheard. Jamal turned to her, his face glowing with a mixture of pride and determination. "Mom, whatever happens next, we'll face it together." Monica smiled, brushing his cheek with the back of her hand. "Yes, baby. Together. Always." Aiden, who had been quiet, finally spoke. "You've started something, Monica. People are watching. People are learning. Maybe this is bigger than just us." Monica looked at them both and nodded. "Then let's make it count." In the weeks that followed, the movement grew. More parents came forward, more stories were shared. What had begun as silence in one auditorium was becoming a chorus across the city. And Monica, once just a nurse who worked in the shadows of hospital corridors, was now at the heart of it. She hadn't asked for this fight, but it was hers now, and she was ready to see it through. Monica woke before dawn on the day the hospital board was set to announce their decision. The air felt heavy, like the pause before a storm. She brewed coffee but barely touched it, her hands restless as she straightened the living room over and over again. Jamal and Aiden watched her quietly from the couch, their fingers intertwined, a silent vow to stand by her no matter the outcome. When the phone rang, her heart lurched. It was her union representative. "They're going to make it public this afternoon," he said. "The press will be there. You should be ready." Ready. The word rattled in her chest. How could anyone be ready to hear whether decades of service would be honored or erased in a single sentence? Yet she knew she had no choice. She looked at her son and his boyfriend, their faces filled with both fear and determination, and she straightened her back. "Then let's go," she said. By noon, the hospital steps were crowded. Supporters waved signs, journalists clutched microphones, and cameras flashed from every angle. Across the street, a smaller group held placards condemning her, their voices sharp with disapproval. It felt like the entire city had gathered to witness the verdict on one woman's life. The board members emerged first, their suits crisp, their expressions unreadable. Then, finally, the spokesperson stepped forward. The crowd hushed. After careful consideration, he began, his voice carrying across the plaza. "The board has decided that Ms. Monica Harris will not be dismissed. Her years of service and dedication outweigh concerns regarding public controversy. However, We emphasize that all staff must remain mindful of the hospital's reputation and community expectations. The words were careful, deliberate, hedged. But Monica heard what mattered most. She would stay. The crowd erupted cheers on one side, angry shouts on the other. Jamal grabbed her hand, his grip fierce with relief. Aiden's eyes brimmed with tears. For a moment, Monica allowed herself to breathe. She had not been silenced. She had not been erased. But she also knew the fight wasn't over. Their statement was laced with warnings, their approval begrudging. She understood. They had given her a place, but not respect. Not yet. That night, Monica sat with her son and his boyfriend in the quiet of their home. They kept me, she said softly. But this isn't just about me anymore. It's about everyone like us who doesn't have a crowd outside the hospital, who doesn't have a microphone to tell their story. Jamal leaned forward, his eyes burning with the same fire she had carried for so long. Then we tell their stories too. We keep going. We don't stop here. And so they did. Over the following months, Monica became more than a nurse. She became a voice. She spoke at schools about the importance of acceptance, at community gatherings about the power of love, at city council meetings about policies that harmed families like hers. Each time, she carried the memory of that silent auditorium, not as a wound, but as a reminder of why she refused to be silent again. Jamal found his own courage too. He and Aiden started a small group for LGBTQ+ students at his college, creating a space where no one had to walk alone. They faced pushback, of course flyers torn down, insults whispered in hallways, but they also found allies they never expected. Slowly, brick by brick, they built something that lasted. One evening, after speaking at a town hall, Monica returned home to find an envelope waiting on her porch. Inside was a handwritten note. Because of you, I stood up for my son today. Thank you for showing me how. Monica held the note to her chest, tears blurring her vision. That single sentence felt like proof that her pain had been transformed into something larger, something that could heal others. But healing was not a straight path. There were still moments when she doubted, when the weight of hate pressed too heavily on her shoulders. On those nights, she would find Jamal at the kitchen table, studying late, and Aiden beside him, gently nudging him to take breaks. She would watch them laugh, tease, comfort each other. And in their love, Monica found her strength again. Months later, the college held another graduation ceremony this time, for a different class. Monica was invited as a guest speaker. Standing on that same stage where silence had once cut her open, she faced an audience of young faces. Some looked nervous, some excited, some uncertain of their place in the world. She took a breath. "A year ago," she began, "I stood here as a mother proud of her son, proud of the man he had become and the love he chose to share. And when I embraced him, this hall turned its back on us. That silence tried to tell us that love was shameful. But here's what I've learned. Silence only has power if we let it. When we speak, when we stand, when we love openly, we take that power back." The hall was quiet not with rejection this time, but with listening. She saw students glance at one another, saw parents shift in their seats, saw something new flicker in the air. "I want each of you to remember," she continued, her voice growing stronger, "that dignity isn't granted by applause. It isn't measured by headlines or approval. Dignity is claimed every time you refuse to hide who you are, every time you choose love over fear." When she finished, the applause came not forced, not hesitant, but full and fierce. This time, the sound was everything it should have been. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Jamal and Aiden met her on the stage. They embraced, just as they had before. Only now, no one turned away. Some clapped louder. Some even stood. Monica closed her eyes and let the sound wash over her. It wasn't a perfect victory. Prejudice still lingered. The system was far from transformed. But for the first time, Monica felt hope blooming stronger than fear. They had endured the silence, faced the storm, and still stood tall. As they walked out of the hall together, mother, son, and his boyfriend, the golden evening light spilled across their faces. Monica squeezed their hands, her voice quiet but certain. "The world may not change overnight," she said, "but as long as we keep standing, it will change." And with that, they stepped forward, their shadows long and intertwined, carrying love into a future that, though uncertain, shimmered with possibility. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.